What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Offseason Recap. Today we're going to be talking about the New York Jets. In the last episode, I talked about how the Giants and Giants fans have been through quite a rough time. How about the Jets fans? Jets fans have been through a ton. I mean, just bad year after bad year after bad year for decades. I mean, the last Super Bowl win was with Joe Namath, and I don't even know what year. Quite before my time. But I actually do think there's some hope for them this year. I think that they're building something. I think they actually have a core of young players that they can build around, and they've supplemented that with some vets. I think we're going to see some growth out of the Jets this year. But anyway, head coach Aaron Glenn, last year, up and down, a lot of down. Didn't have a quarterback, didn't have a lot of playmakers on defense, not a single interception at all last year. I believe they had 4 turnovers the entire year on defense. That's ridiculous, and to get no interceptions is just outrageous. I don't know how that's even possible, but I think he's a fine head coach. I think players are going to rally around him. I think it's going to work out as long as the Jets give him the chance, as long as the players don't kind of just give up, which I hope they don't, but with how bad the Jets have been in previous years, there have been players who have just given up. We know for a fact that they just don't care anymore. But this year I think will be different. They bring in Frank Reich. How about the offense? Former coach for the Colts, Panthers, head coach. Offensive coordinator here. Pretty good offensive mind. Didn't really work out in his head coaching positions, but he ran a lot of 11 personnel places he was. Probably look to see a little more 12 personnel this year. If you don't know what that means, 11 personnel, 1 running back, 1 tight end. 12 personnel, 1 running back, 2 tight ends. 21 personnel, 2 running backs, 1 tight end. Most teams, the quote-unquote base offense is 11 with 3 receivers, 1 running back, 1 tight end. Yeah, like I was saying, look to see probably a lot more 12 personnel, maybe some 13 personnel, because of some players they've added in, who we'll talk about in a little bit. Kenyon Sadiq, Mason Taylor, but we'll get to that. We'll get to that. They've got some good pieces on offense. I'm actually very excited to see this offense. I think for any fantasy football people out there, I think keep an eye on this offense. We'll see what happens, though. Defensive-wise, Brian Duker bring in. He's been with Aaron Glenn in a couple of different spots. He's with the Lions, been around for a little bit. He's got his work cut out for him. Last year, their defense was historically bad. He's got a lot of work to do. Him and Aaron Glenn and the rest of the coaching staff down here, they've got a lot of work to do to develop this team. But they brought in some playmakers. So let's jump into their free agents here. So quite a few free agents here. I don't love their free agent class. I'll be honest. A lot of band-aids. Joseph Osai, 3 years, 34, solid rotational pass rusher. That's kind of it. His upside is very limited. He's been with the Bengals. As we all know, if we watched football last year, Bengals defense was also not very good. Not a lot of pressure on the quarterback. Couldn't stop the run. So, he's not a bad player by any means, but you could definitely do better. But as a rotational piece, that's fine. Only 2 years guaranteed, basically. So that last year is not guaranteed. Basically, 2-year deal. That's fine. Demario Davis, one of the better linebackers of the past decade, been with the Saints for a long time. I mean, he's in the same conversation as Levante David, Luke Kuechly, Bobby Wagner, those guys. He's right up there with them. 2 years, 22. He's older. I think he might be on the other side of 30. Might be getting closer to 40. So, $15 million guaranteed. It's a little bit over 1 year guaranteed, but we'll see if he's there next year. It depends on how his body holds up. I can't say for sure, but I think it's a very, very good possibility he's not there next year. Kingsley Enagbare, very, very difficult name there, but it's with the Packers last year, but another solid rotational pass rusher, bigger guy, very powerful. But for a bigger guy, his run defense isn't great, which, bigger guy, you'd like better run defense, but very powerful guy, very long guy. I think with some development, he can be a much better player. I think he's got more upside than Joseph Osai. Dane Belton, former Giant safety, very fast, very athletic guy. Depth piece, $4 million. Like I said, just a depth piece. Then Nashawn Wright here had a lot of interceptions for the Bears last year. He's a very impactful player, forcing a ton of turnovers. Very Tariq Woolen-esque season, very fast, very tall guy, just like Tariq Woolen, but tackling problems. And there were times where you're like, oh my gosh, how did he just make that play? How did he get that interception? Other times it'd be like, wow, he just got burnt. Get that guy some help. So 1 year, $3.5 million, take that shot. Sure. I love that signing. Andre Sisco, deep safety. Been with the Jags, was with the Jets last year. Well, he's re-signed with the Jets this year, but solid player. Like I said, plays deep, good range, good athleticism. $2.5 million contract. Earlier in his career, he's still relatively young, but early in his career, there were some aspirations that he could be a very, very solid player, but kind of simmered out. Hopefully he could bounce back and continue to grow. Kene Nwangwu, former Seattle Seahawk. If you're not aware, Seahawks are my favorite team. We'll get to them in the series at some point, but great return man, very explosive. Get the ball in this guy's hands, and he can make something happen. Probably won't get a lot of touches at running back if he does make the team. Not sure if he will, but if he does make the team, expect him to return some kicks, punts, whatever. Very good in that. Max Mitchell, depth left tackle, solid player, but 26 years old. Solid. Same with Chukwuma Okafor, solid player, or Korafor, a solid player, right tackle, depth. Andrew Beck, fullback. Last episode talked about Pat Ricard. Andrew Beck is not really the same player as Pat Ricard. Patrick Ricard is much more physical. Andrew Beck is just smaller and just will be employed a little bit differently. But Micah Walker, linebacker depth, see if he makes a team. And same thing with Xavier Newman-Johnson. Let's talk about guys that they let go. So a couple big names here. Elijah Vera Tucker was one of the top guards on the market here. Got a pretty solid contract, 3 years, $42 to go over there to the Patriots. But he's been hurt a ton. Just like torn biceps, just tons of different injuries. You hope that he can stay healthy with the Patriots, but there's a lot of questions around that. As listed as tackle guard, he played tackle in college, but he's played guard throughout his career with the Jets. Hopefully he bounces back from injury, but solid player. John Simpson, a little bit older, but when signed with the Ravens, once again, solid guard. The Jets, we'll talk about it. They have actually a very solid offensive line. You see them losing 2 starters here. They still got quite a few pieces. Quincy Williams. Quinnen Williams' brother, but last year, I don't want to say for certain, but around the time that Quinnen Williams was getting traded, he basically got benched. He wasn't playing a ton. I don't know if it had something to do with his brother getting traded or what, but he did get benched. But he's generally a pretty solid linebacker, gets a ton of tackles, solid player. Michael Clemens, depth pass rusher, bigger guy, solid player. Nick Folk, they lose, kicker. Tyrod Taylor, who was playing some games for them, solid backup quarterback. Tony Adams played for them a little bit. Receiver John Mechie, got a lot of love for John Mechie. Cancer survivor, bounced around a little bit, hasn't been able to find a spot, but he was pretty talented, especially at Alabama in college, but just so many injuries, hasn't been able to bounce back. Stone Smart, tight end, former quarterback in college. He did everything, turned kicks, like played quarterback. Very interesting player, but doesn't really have a spot. Tyler Johnson, rest of these guys, all just depth pieces. But we'll talk about these last 2 here. Jasir Taylor, they traded a 7th round pick for at the trade deadline last year to the Chargers. Traded a 7th round pick. He's not back on the team. It's not the biggest waste. I don't know if you want to call it a waste, but I guess you'd rather have that 7th round pick than a guy who's not on the roster and didn't help you win or anything, but whatever. And then Hendon Hooker, former Tennessee quarterback, drafted by the Lions in the 3rd round, I believe. Hasn't worked out. We'll see. I'm not sure he's going to be able to find any playing time on the Titans. Obviously, they have Cam Ward, but as a backup, even I'm not sure he's going to make that team. But we'll see what happens there. Overall, I like their free agency, but actually, as of the time that I'm recording this, the Jets just signed Breece Hall to a 3-year deal worth $45.75 million, which Breece Hall's a great player. A great pass catcher, very explosive, but his first year he got injured. He was having a great year, then injured, kind of took a step back, but he's still a very good player. Just get the ball in that guy's hands, and he can make a huge impact. But don't think they're probably going to be making too many other moves. Maybe extending some players. Not sure. But let's move on to the draft picks, which I actually really like this draft. It's gotten some flack from a lot of people, but start off with David Bailey. I would have taken Arvell Reese. Talked about it in my Giants video. I think Arvell Reese was the best prospect in the entire class. I mean, Arvell Reese can just do everything. Solid in pass coverage, great run defender, play strength is incredible, closing speed incredible, like 6'5", 240, and the things that he could do, just destroying offensive tackles. You don't see that. But David Bailey, let's not cut him short. Great pass rusher, ton of production at Texas Tech. Very explosive, can really get upfield with his speed. But there are some major questions. He's not like a can't miss prospect. His bend. So his ability to bend through and go around tackles, there's some tightness in his hips, ankles. See if, I mean, he's not really going to fix that. He can maybe get a little bit more flexible, if you want to say it like that, but that is a concern, but it's not like a killer. He had some run stopping issues. He's about 6'3", 6'4", 250 with like 4.5 speed. So his run stopping, it wasn't great. He showed some promise, showed that he can do it. He will get involved, but mainly the reason he was drafted was because he was a pass rusher. Some people think that he might just be a third down player, just a pure rotational pass rusher. And I don't know if I shared that view personally. I think David Bailey can be a 3-down player. He'd have to improve in his run defense, but I think he can do that. But yeah, like I said, I think they should have drafted Arvell Reese. I think just as a prospect to develop him, I think he was just a lot better. But that's not to cut this pick short. I think David Bailey definitely was the better pass rusher coming out right now than Arvell Reese. But, give Arvell Reese 5-10 years, whatever. Probably going to be a better player, especially with all the limitations David Bailey has. And then move on to Kenyon Sadiq. I saw a lot of people not like this pick. People talk about how he's not the greatest route runner. They could have had, Mekhi Lemon, a couple other people they were talking about. Personally, I think Kenyon Sadiq is a great pick. If you watch any Seahawks football last year, a lot of 12 personnel. That's what, Seahawks won it all. The Super Bowl team, it's copycat league. I hear that all the time. It's kind of a buzzword now, but it is true. It's a copycat league. Teams are going to try to copy what the Seahawks do. They have quite a similar offense to what the Seahawks have. Garrett Wilson, you could kind of compare to Jackson Smith and Jig, but we'll stick to the tight ends here. Kenyon Sadiq, very athletic guy. Good second level blocker. He's not taking on defensive ends and winning, but if he gets to the next level, gets against linebackers, nickel corners, safeties, obviously boundary corners as well, he can win, and he could get up there quick. You could use his movement, like moving him around. We hear the term move tight end, joker tight end, H-back, fullback, bunch of different names. They're all kind of synonymous, but some have different meanings. But he can move all over the place, play in the slot. And I think, getting back to the Seahawks point I was making, him and Mason Taylor are a very good combo. They're very similar to what the Seahawks were employing with A.J. Barner and Elijah Arroyo when he was healthy. They had a lot of dynamic sets with that, where they really just they put teams in a bind, because we see a lot of teams run a too high shell, where they're dropping two safeties back, trying to take away explosive plays. But if you bring more guys, up to the line of scrimmage to block, like tight ends, teams have to bring guys up, or else they're just going to get run on. So if teams bring defenders up into the box, like bring a safety up, whatever, add another linebacker in even, if you have tight ends or, just anybody with speed who can stretch the field, and you could get them into favorable matchups, or just get them down the field like Kenyon Sadiq can do, just outrunning people, that's huge. He also just get the ball in his hands, and he can do a lot with it. He's 6'3", 240, around a 4.3 at tight end. We don't see that. That was the record for tight end. We don't see that ever. Just a great athlete. Just get the ball in his hands. Let him go to work. Let him stretch the field. Just give him some time. I think day one he's gonna be a very impactful player. But if you're looking for the more route running capability and more talent, more ability there, that's something that I think he can develop for sure. But I think just day one he's got so much talent. And I've seen other people talk about, they should just taken Brock Bowers or Tyler Warren or Colston Loveland, but it's like different drafts, different players available, different needs. I think Kenyon Sadiq is a great pick here. And then they still pick up Omar Cooper at 30. Trade back up into the first. I love that pick. I think he's a winning player. He's willing to block, which we'll talk about that at the end. Well, not at the end, but after a little bit of talking about him. Great route runner. Get the ball in his hands. People cannot tackle him. He's just, you cannot bring him down. I don't know what it is. He's not even that big of a guy. Maybe 6 foot, about 200 pounds. Just makes people miss. People just cannot wrap him up. Solid speed, like 4.4 speed, which we weren't sure what he was going to run at the combine. Showed up 4.4. All right, perfect. You can be a first-round guy now. Great catching ability. People, I know we probably all saw that Indiana catch against, I believe it was Penn State in the back of the end zone to win the game. That was insane. This guy's just a winning player. Obviously won the national championship with Indiana. Great player. But back to what I was saying about blocking. A receiver being able to block in itself isn't like the most important thing, but I think it shows you more about the player. If you have a receiver who, can get open and is going to get the ball, who's still willing to block, it tells you who they are. Like, they want to win. They're willing to do whatever they have to do to win. And, they're going to give effort, and they're going to go that extra mile. It tells you who they are as a person, like I just said. But I think we see that with 49ers receivers a lot, where they get in, they block, they do what they have to do, and they're going to get the ball, and they're fine with that. Now, there is some drawbacks that the Niners receivers get hurt a lot, but is that due to the blocking? Not sure. But anyway, Omar Cooper, I think he's a very solid player. I think the blocking is good. I think that's a plus. Shows you that he's a competitor. He's definitely a competitor. Great route runner, great hands. I think it's a great pick. Now we move on to D'Angelo Ponce. Smaller corner, very small, about 5'8", maybe 5'9". But you watch this guy at Indiana. Oh my gosh. This guy's a playmaker. He just wherever the ball is, he somehow just finds a way to make a play. Like, he gets up and tackles. I don't care how small he is. He gets in and he tackles. He's got a great feel for coverage, zone coverage, man coverage. There are obviously him being smaller. That is an issue. If teams can manipulate where he is on the field and find a way to get a bigger receiver on him, that's a problem. You're gonna have to take him on the field. Like, if a team, is moving a guy like DK Metcalf, who's a physical big receiver around, they can somehow manipulate D'Angelo Ponce to be on him, that's not gonna work out most of the time. But I think that his size, he can play above that. No, he does play above that size. He does. We've seen it at the college level. Obviously NFL different, but I think this is a guy who's going to make plays no matter what his size is, and just find a way onto the field. It's tough when people talk about measurables like size, arm length, because they do matter, but it's like, to what extent do they matter? I think when you have a guy who's 5'9", it does matter, but since he's just such good of a player, I think it's okay. I think he will find a place to play, and the Jets will employ him, and he will be good. Moving on to Darrell Jackson. I am very into looking at the defensive tackles and edge rushers. That's what I do mostly. Darrell Jackson was an interesting player to watch. He's huge, about 6'5", 315 pounds, long arms, 34 to 35-inch arms, which that's very long. For instance, if you've heard about Ruben Bain's short arms, his were about 30 inches, which 5-inch difference, that's a lot. In terms of blocking and leverage, it really makes an impact. It really does. So Darrell Jackson, huge guy, very powerful. Explosiveness, not really there. You see this guy, like, he just wins with power, just goes through people. But it does sometimes look like he's moving in quicksand. He's just not moving that well, which for that size, you're not expecting that. But, you think of a guy that big, that strong going this late, there's got to be a reason why. That's it. He plays with a lot of high pad level, so he's losing the leverage battle, and he's already a really tall guy. So that's a major disadvantage already. I'd like to see him develop more pass rush and more technique to his game, because at the college level, you can just win with pure power. I'm stronger than you. Get out of the way. When it comes to the NFL level, everybody is the strongest kid at their high school, and maybe their college. They're the strongest kid there. They could just beat you no matter how good their technique is. When you get to the NFL, everybody's that strong, and everybody has good technique. If you're a starter in this league, you have good technique and you're strong. So if you're just winning with power and your technique's not there, it's not going to work in the NFL. It can work in college, not going to work here. But I think he could definitely develop that. He's got all the measurables, all the athleticism. Even though the explosiveness is not incredible, I think it's fine with his size and his strength. Make up for it. Work in some techniques. Put in some time. I think this could be a definite impact player. Cade Klubnik. This one I don't love. The Jets have a ton of draft picks coming up in the next couple of years. We'll actually talk about that in a second here. What picks they have in the future, because we know they made a lot of trades. I just don't think Cade Klubnik's ever going to be that great. Maybe he could be backup quarterback. He's got solid athleticism. Arm strength is okay. And that's kind of it. He's just okay. Could he be a starter? Sure. I just don't love him. I'm going to move on. Inez Cooper, guard from Miami. Very powerful guy. Another really powerful guy, similar to Dale Jackson. Actually, very similar in the case as well. Powerful guy, 6'6", 330, I believe, with long arms, 34-inch arms, which usually guys like that get moved out to tackle. But his movement skills and his pad level, not good. They're an issue. He can't move that well, but he's very powerful. So, like I said, Daryl Jackson, if you're that powerful, you can win. But his technique is okay, but he can't really move that great. His feet are not that great. His pad level is high, so he's losing leverage battles, and being 6'6", that's an issue. It's another scenario where he's got to develop. He's got to develop technique. He's got the size, but that's why he went in the 6th round. You see a guy with those measurables go that late, there's got to be something obviously an issue, and that's it. Move on to VJ Payne from Kansas State. This was a guy who was maybe going to go in the 4th or 5th round from a lot of mock draft experts. This is a guy who's like 6'3", 210, maybe closer to like 205. But you look at that, you're like, okay, that's a pretty good size safety. Can this guy, come up and play in the box? And he can, but not for the reasons that you might think. He's not the greatest run defender, despite that size at safety. You might think he is, but he's not. Can get downfield. I was watching some of his clips to refresh for this episode, and it just seemed like sometimes he just didn't want to wrap up. He just kind of threw his body kind of in there. I'm not saying he doesn't want to tackle, but sometimes it just didn't look like he was really jumping into it. He's got pretty good coverage skills. He ran 4.4 with that size. That's very, very good for a safety. But his range is good, but we don't think he's going to be mainly a deep safety. He's probably going to be up in the slot, in the box. Pretty good man coverage. Going up against tight ends, going up against bigger receivers. That's where he kind of thrives, which, there is value to that. But if he's going to be a guy who's got to play closer to the line of scrimmage and he's not that great of a run defender, what do you do with him? There's just going to be other players who are just better run defenders and are also good in pass coverage that just kind of beat him out. But overall, I like their draft. I really do. I think they got really good talent. Even if it's despite what measurables say or what the NFL typically does. We don't usually see 5'9" corners. We don't see that. But I like it. I like the talent they brought in. I think this draft, they did very well. But let's go ahead and let's look at their future picks. Now, looking at it might just be a little difficult to understand, but basically, this is each round. This is by year. We're looking at 2027. That's next year's draft class. So basically, in the first round, they've got their own pick. They've got the Colts pick from the Sauce Gardner trade, and they've got this Cowboys pick, but it's actually a swap best, if you want to call it that, from the Packers and Cowboys. So they get the better of those two picks. So they're going to have 3 first-round picks right now. One of those could be used on a quarterback. Maybe they use them to trade up. That's why I don't really love the Cade Klubnik pick, but whatever. You'd imagine one of those has to be quarterback, even though they brought in Geno Smith. And they've got all their other picks in the 6th round drawn off their own, but they've got 3 others. So lots of ammo moving forward. Assume they're going to use some of that on a quarterback. We'll see. Really quickly, just want to go over compensatory picks. The Jets aren't projected to get any, but just want to talk about them. Basically, each year you have CFAs, which are compensatory free agents. Jets here, you see they lost 5, but they brought in 7. So basically, in order to get compensatory picks, you have to lose more compensatory free agents than you gain. So if, let's say they gained 7, lost 5, they could be in the running to get compensatory picks. You see on the left side here how Trey Hendrickson is number 1. So he's predicted to be a third round compensatory pick. They would get the first compensatory pick of the third round. It's weighted basically off of how much that player gets paid and also how they play that year. So if they hit a certain sack marker or they get all pro, Pro Bowl, things like that, Jets aren't going to get any of those. If you go down to a team like the Seahawks, 4 lost, none gained. So they're going to get 4 compensatory picks. You see a fourth for Boye Mafe, and then 3/5 for these 3 guys. Just want to go over that. That's how compensatory picks work. So if your team just lets a guy walk and they don't trade him, like, why didn't they trade him? That's why. They could maybe get compensatory picks for him. They're just might be more valuable than what they're getting offered, but they can also just keep that player, let them play, maybe help them win, and then get the value. Talk about it with Kayvon Thibodeau. That's probably what the Giants are doing there. Talk about the trades they made. So earlier in the offseason, they traded Jermaine Johnson for T'Vondre Sweat straight up. T'Vondre Sweat, nose tackle. Big dude from Texas. Jermaine Johnson, bigger edge rusher, about 6'5", 260. I think it's a fine trade. I like it for both sides, filling needs. With the Jets, they pretty much knew they were going to bring in a edge rusher in the draft, bring in David Bailey. They have Will McDonald. They bring in Joseph Osai. They've got Kingsley Enagbare as well. They've got some guys in that room. They need some depth at the defensive tackle. I like that trade. On this one, the Minkah Fitzpatrick trade, I don't mind it. He's getting a little bit older. You trade a 7th round pick for him. I mean, he's way better than the 7th round pick. It's a great player, great value. I'm just worried about when this team is going to compete, and is Minkah Fitzpatrick really going to help you? He might help you develop some guys, which is probably worth a 7th round pick, but I think this is overall a good trade. Then here, this one right here, these 2 are probably the most interesting. So the Jets trade a 6th round pick in return for Geno Smith and a 7th round pick. I'm a big Geno fan. I watched him with the Seahawks. I saw the offensive line they gave him. Wasn't good at all. And he showed up and he made plays. Now he's older. He battled some injuries and stuff last year with the Raiders. The Raiders were not great at all. That's why they got the number 1 pick. I think Geno can be a starting level quarterback. I think he can bounce back. I like it. You basically swap a 6th for a 7th. Like, that's okay. But yeah, I think Geno for the next maybe 2 or 3 years, especially if you plan on maybe extending him and then bringing in a rookie next year if you don't want him to play right away. I think that's also very good. Geno could be very good in that role. But I think Geno he's got the arm talent. He's got the athleticism. He's been around adversity. Just good dude. I like it. Then the Justin Fields trade. Justin Fields was not good last year. They get a 6th round pick for it in 2027. So next year's draft, not this draft. Yeah, I mean, yeah, do that. You don't want to have his money on the books. He's probably not going to play. Capitalize on it. I'm cool with that. The Chiefs get a solid backup quarterback because I think Mahomes is going to start the year, but we'll see. Let's move on to their multi-year salary. So straight away, see a lot of colors. Let's talk about that. So Brandon Stevens here, corner. See, he's making 13.9 here, 14 here. This orange, see how it says void. Basically, when a player gets a contract, they get a base salary and a signing bonus. The signing bonus, let's say you have 5 years and you get $20 million in signing bonus. Basically, you'll have $4 million each year of that contract. Now, if you add void years to that, it spaces that out more. So if for this instance, they've got, I think, 3 void years on him, or well, 2 because this one's 0. That means that they're spacing out the signing bonus for more. So they're not paying as much each year, but they're deferring it later. So if they choose not to bring him back on a contract and let him walk, that 4 plus 2, that's $6 million will just all come to that first year in 2028, and they'll have $6 million in dead cap unless they re-sign him. Just straight up $6 million dead cap. Same thing with Jamien Sherwood. If they don't re-sign him after this contract's done, about $9.5 million just dead cap this year. You know, void years can help a team that's trying to compete, which the Jets weren't. Sucks, but it can help a team compete in the right now. If you need cap space, you're like, if you're a team like the Bills, like, okay, we need to go get a receiver. Let's open up some cap space. Let's defer Josh Allen's contract. Let's defer Patrick Mahomes' contract. Let's go get some other weapons. That's when you do that. But you might be looking at this just looking at their top paid guys, you're like, they're not really paying a lot of money out. I mean, Breece Hall, like I said, just got a 3-year extension, but he's their highest paid player right now, $14.2 million. Brandon Stevens, Jamian Sherwood, Garrett Wilson, Harrison Phillips, getting older, just probably gonna let him go. Garrett Wilson, love this contract, think that's pretty good value. But yeah, like, who are they paying? If we go down here to their dead money, oh my goodness, that's a lot of dead money. Aaron Rodgers, Justin Fields, Sauce Gardner, like this is considerable. I'm not sure. It's $104 million in dead cap. The cap max is $300 million, so that's more than a third of the cap just on players that aren't on the roster. That's not ideal. Their management not been great. What can you do? Just move forward, make some better moves. But yeah, you see a ton of void years, so there's going to continue to be a lot of dead money. Yeah. It's a little troublesome to look at this, but I think looking at the future, they're going to bring in a quarterback next year. You'd assume rookie scale contract, try to win on that. Hopefully some of this dead cap clears up. You still got some younger guys under contract. The Garrett Wilson contract's not terrible. You have some guys coming off the books that you're probably not going to pay. Joe Tippmann, I like, might try to extend him. Kenyon Sadiq's contract's not expensive. Then just a bunch of guys coming off the books. Geno, they might have to extend. We'll see what that might turn into. But I want to talk about these right here: restricted free agent, RFA, and ERFA. So restricted free agent basically means that a team can match any offer you get. So like they can choose not to. So for the equal rights free agent, we'll just talk about that because it is a little bit confusing. Equal rights free agent, they could basically say, okay, we have the rights to you. We could give you a minimum contract, but like other teams can try. We could just say no. Like this is ours. You're just on our team. As long as they pick that up, nobody can have them. Even if it's an offer, you don't have to match it. You give them the minimum. Restricted free agent, it's where a team can give them money, but you could say, okay, we're matching it. You're ours. Now it's a little more complicated. There are some other ins and outs. If you don't, give them that like the ERFA, there's different tenders, especially for restricted free agents. There's different things that you could apply to a player. It does get quite confusing. Maybe we'll make another video just talking about that. But basically, it just means that they have control of that player, and they control if that player is going to be back on the team. You're going to see a lot of players like that. Just know that they're probably younger players who haven't really made an impact yet. Are younger guys. I think it's 3 years or less for restricted free agent, and 1 or 2 years for an ERFA. But yeah, overall, I think this team did get better. Look at the depth chart. I think they've got some playmakers on offense. Look at the receiving core: Garrett Wilson, Omar Cooper. Really like those guys. Adonai Mitchell, guy in the Sauce Gardner trade from Texas, had some issues with the Colts, dropping problems, but he's got great size, great athleticism. I think he's a solid player. I think he could be a solid boundary. See him play that Z position, maybe the X, because Garrett Wilson has played in the slot a lot. We'll probably see him on the boundary more, especially with Omar Cooper might be in the boundary. He might be in the Z. We will probably see them in a lot of 2 tight end sets, so Mason Taylor and Kenyon Sadiq both out there, where you're probably only going to get 2 receivers, depending on if there's also fullback with Andrew Beck in there. Different looks. Other than that, for the receiving core, not much here. Just being real. Arian Smith has got a lot of speed, but these other guys, there's not much. Their offensive line, I love their offensive line. Olu Fashanu from Penn State, young tackle, very good. Same thing with Armand Membu, Missouri, very good young tackle. Both those guys very athletic. They have arguably 2 of the most valuable positions in the entire league in their tackles. They have them set. I love those. On the interior, Dylan Parham, they bring in from the Raiders, which, if you follow football, the Raiders' offensive line was atrocious last year. There's questions if that was the players themselves, if it was coaching. If you didn't know, Pete Carroll's son was the offensive line coach, and he wouldn't get rid of him. So do with that as you will. Let's just say the coaching probably wasn't there, and it just never gelled. Not really on the players. We'll leave it at that. Josh Myers, solid player, as well as Joe Tippmann. I think these guys could swap. Joe Tippmann came out from, I believe it was Wisconsin, as a center. playing at guard. He's a bigger guy as well. I think he's about 6'6", 6'5", so makes sense to move him to guard. But I really like this interior. I think they've got some solid players all across the offensive line. I think it could honestly be one of the better offensive lines in the league as long as the younger guys continue to develop. We talk about Kenyon Sadiq, Mason Taylor. I think both of these guys are going to be studs. I think Mason Taylor's more of your inline guy, blocking, can then get out, catch the ball, get the ball in his hands, can kind of stretch the field. But Kenyon Sadiq is your playmaker at that position. I talked about him a lot already. I love Kenyon Sadiq. Get him the ball, get him blocking the second level, move him around, confuse teams, get him mismatches, let him use his athleticism, let him stretch the field, just employ him in a bunch of different areas. And then Jeremy Rucker is probably one of the better blocking tight ends in the entire league from Ohio State. He's been around for a couple years, but just one of the players that kind of gets pushed to the side, the blocking tight end for teams. Jeremy Rucker's got more value than you'd probably expect, but just give Jeremy Rucker his flowers. Quarterback, we talked about Geno. I think he's going to be solid this year. Kate Klubnik, don't love that pick. Brady Cook, we saw play. Quarterback from Missouri. Probably not much there. And Bailey Zappi, we've seen bounce around a little bit now. Been with the Patriots, been with the Browns. That's it. That's Bailey Zappi. Running back, I actually really like this room. Breece Hall, Braylon Allen, great 1-2 punch. Very similar to the Kenneth Walker, Zach Charbonnet. Breece Hall is this explosive guy. Get the ball in his hands. He can go make nothing into something. Braylon Allen's more of your put your head down and run through somebody. Bigger guy. He was really young coming out. He was only like 20 years old and got drafted. He was just incredible in college. I believe it's out of Wisconsin. Got injured last year, but I think this combination you'll see is going to be very, very, very good running back duo. One of the better ones in the league. Isaiah Davis been a solid rotational player. Then I talked about Kenny Nwangwu. Very solid return man, very explosive. Don't know if he's going to make the team, but maybe because of that returning upside, we'll see. Then Andrew Beck obviously can be employed as a fullback, blocking, different things. Not as good as Patrick Ricard or Kyle Juszczyk or the other fullbacks in the league, but he does play his role. And then look at the defense as a whole. It's better than last year, so that's good. Defensive line, I don't hate, also don't love it. Interior defensive line, we'll talk about the edge rushers kind of separating these two. David Onyemata, which I don't think they actually had him in the free agents, but yeah, they brought him in as a free agent. Defensive lineman from Atlanta, the Atlanta Falcons. Solid player, getting up a little bit up there in age. Once again, another kind of band-aid player who's not really a long-term fix, kind of just like go out there and play. Let's see if we can compete this year and develop some other guys. T'Vondre Sweat, talked about him. Very solid nose tackle. Harrison Phillips getting older, we talked about him. Okay player. Jawan Briggs actually showed a lot of promise. Jets fans probably know, like, this is a solid player. Moves a little bit around, plays the 1-tech, 3-tech. Very solid run defender. He's a little bit shorter. I think he's maybe about 6'1", 315. He uses being shorter to his advantage. He uses that leverage to beat other bigger guys, and he just wins. Darrell Jackson, we talked about, kind of the opposite of Jawan Briggs. Much bigger, much more powerful guy who wins with his power. What Jawan Briggs is using leverage, using technique, and just winning. And then other than that, like Eric Watts, guy from UConn. Mozzie Smith was in the Quentin Williams trade, was a first-round pick from Michigan by the Cowboys. Hasn't worked out, as you can see. He's the third nose tackle. Hasn't worked out. Move on to edge rushers. David Bailey, Will McDonald, Kingsley Enagbare, Joseph Osai. It's an interesting rotation. Will McDonald's very undersized. I think he's only in about 235, maybe 240 range, which is undersized for an edge rusher. Not the greatest run defender, but the pass rush is definitely there, very explosive. David Bailey also, he's about 250, so he's not undersized, but he's not the greatest run defender. So those two are not the greatest run defenders. But then Kingsley Enagbare, very powerful, not a great run defender, but a bigger guy, so just has more ability there naturally. And then Joseph Osai is also just kind of a solid player in both facets. So they've got two really good pass rushers. One guy who's got size and is a good power rusher, isn't great against the run. Then one guy who's just like, yeah, he's okay. So I don't love the edge rushing room, but I do like it, mostly because of David Bailey, and kind of because of Will McDonald, because he's so explosive. Just his get off is incredible. Talk about inside linebackers. Jamien Sherwood, solid player. gets a lot of tackles. I mean, just a solid player. Demario Davis, aging. I don't want to say that it's a bad signing. I just don't think it's going to work out where he's going to be like this all-pro or even Pro Bowl level linebacker. I think it's more just like a veteran leadership role, help kind of bring this team together and give them a player they can look to and be like, hey, what are we doing? Just somebody to bounce things off of that's not a coach, which teams need that. You need those good locker room guys. At linebacker, that's kind of it. But however, Kiko Mauinoa, that's is actually Francis Mauinoa's brother. We talked about in the last episode. Francis Mauinoa, the offensive tackle from playing guard from Miami with the Giants. Corner here, Sean Wright, Brandon Stevens, D'Angelo Pons. Sean Wright we talked about. Brandon Stevens we talked about a little bit with his void years, but Brandon Stevens is a solid player. He's getting up there in age. Not great. D'Angelo Pons we talked about. Azariah Thomas, a bit of a bigger corner. But the athleticism's not there. He slid in the draft, I believe last year. Solid corner. Just the athleticism stuff does kind of draw him back a little bit. Solid player though. Qantas Stiggers from I think he played in the CFL. He didn't play in college and then got drafted from the CFL from Montreal something. I forget what the name is, but interesting path to the NFL, interesting player. He was pretty solid. He's played a little bit. Solid player. Jarvis Brownlee, I believe they traded for him last year as well from the Titans. It was like a 7th round pick or something. They did a couple of those moves where, same with Jasir Taylor. They just gave up a 7th round pick last year just to get him. I mean, I guess maybe there's scheme fits for Aaron Glenn. I don't know if he just likes them because he himself was a corner. I don't know. I don't know why they keep doing that. Whatever. And then other corners, Samuel Womack was okay. Trey Brown, former Seahawk. I remember his rookie year was very good. Second year was very good, and then he just he got hurt a little bit and then just completely fell off. Was not good. And Jordan Clark, okay player. At safety, Minka Fitzpatrick we talked about. Andre Sisco we talked about. Pretty solid safety room for their starters. Then Dane Belton and Malachi Moore. Pretty solid safety rotation, honestly. Like four safeties that are pretty good. And then VJ Payne also, I think, can carve out a role if he makes the roster. I think he will because he has such a specialized role that he can play very well. And there's some teams where you like need a guy like him. It's like, okay, they've got a tight end who's just destroying us in the middle. We need you to kind of man up on him. Not necessarily man up on him, but like if he is in your area, like in your playing zone coverage, and he comes in, we need you to use your length and find a way to get in there and break up the pass. Or if it is man coverage, like sticky, like stay on this guy. Use your length. Like he's torching us. I think that could be the kind of player he is. But overall, I think this is a pretty solid team. I don't think they're competing to be a playoff team, or Super Bowl team. I don't even think they're really gonna be a playoff team. But I think this is a team that you could maybe see win like 9 games. Hover around 500. Can't be 500 in the NFL. There's too many games. Maybe 9-8, 8-9. I think this is. It's kind of. It's not a retool because they're still in a rebuild. It's kind of a year where they're just. Let's get some veterans in, try to develop some of our younger guys, and continue our rebuild, and just try to be a little bit better because they have 3 first-round picks next year. Hopefully, I mean. The first-round picks probably aren't going to be great. You imagine the Colts to be solid. Imagine the Cowboys would probably be solid. You imagine the Packers be solid. So that Cowboys-Packers best pick probably won't be great either. And then if they are good, their pick's not going to be great either. So I'm sure there's some Jets fans that want them to be good. And there's other Jets fans like, well, if they're good, we're not going to get a good pick. We're not going to get a quarterback. I understand. That's not a place you want to be in as a fan. But I do think this team can win some games. I think they have some building blocks. I think like they have some of the receivers and pass catchers, including tight ends, for the future. They have their 2 tackles of the future. They have possibly a top edge rusher in the league. They've got some pieces to build around. So overall, I think this team maybe 500, probably less than that. Maybe more like a 6, maybe 7 win team. See what happens. But yeah, thank you for watching this episode of Offseason Recap. If you want me to continue the series or do your team, make sure to like, subscribe. Yeah, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next episode.